Hello and welcome back to Blow Up the Team. Jeremy here today with Matt.
Hello.
Deafening silence. Deafening silence.
I don't know why. It took me a second to register that you had said my name.
You changed your name recently.
I guess I did. I don't know. It's been a weird day. I woke up, I drove my sister to Tom's River, and then I came back, and then I have done nothing. I literally have done nothing all day. It's like, because then I had a meeting with someone, and then I had to get on a call with someone, and then I had to go drive my sister back, and so, like, I've just, it's been weird. I'm not used to hearing my name right now. I don't know.
Uh, interesting. Anyways,
Anyway.
today we will be looking at the Seattle Seahawks and their 2020 NFL Draft. Before we get into the video, as always, please remember that any highlight video that I show that is not straight from the NFL Draft page will be linked in the description down below. And of course, we do not own the rights to any of these clips. That is all property of the NFL. But I think that we've hit all of our precursors. So let's go ahead and get right into the video here. And let's start with talking about the 2019 Seattle Seahawks. 11-5 last season. Honestly, the team looked like a very dangerous team at points throughout the season. Unfortunately, they were in the wild card because they share a division with the 49ers. And we all know what the 49ers did this season. But very solid football team. They played hard. They played well despite many injuries, especially to the running back core last season. And they just continue to perform. Russell Wilson is showing why he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, leading this football team. And DK Metcalf, rookie last season, had an outstanding season for them. Their offense was the star of this team. They were eighth in yards per game. 14th in passing yards per game, which was a little surprising to me. I thought they'd be a little bit higher on the list. But despite all the injuries, they were fourth in rushing yards per game. So the very effective scheme there for Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks. They were ninth in points per game, so they were just an efficient offense all around. Um, and then they got into the off season and they decided that they weren't quite happy with the production that they got out of that offensive line, so they decided that they wanted to make some major changes to it, despite how well that they played last season. Not necessarily the offensive line play. I'm not going to claim to know specifically how good or bad their offensive line play was last season, but the production was there for the offense. But regardless, they are going to be running out almost, and I think more than half of the offensive line is going to be new going into the season. They brought in Brandon Shell to start at right tackle, as well as B.J. Finney to start at center. And then at the skill position players, they signed Philip Dorsett from the Patriots to be wide receiver 3 and kind of round out a solid top 3 in the wide receiving core with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, who I mentioned earlier. And they also signed Carlos Hyde to be running back 3 and round out that backfield. Um, Rashad Penny and oh no, this is terrible. Matt, do you remember that other guy's name? Please help me.
Um,
Chris Carson. Thank you.
yeah, Chris Carson. How could you
Yeah,
forget Chris Carson?
I don't know how I forgot Chris Carson. That was embarrassing. Um, but that makes it very solid. Kind of 3 running back tandem for them back there, especially if they can all stay healthy. And overall just gives them more depth at a position that's been unfortunately showing a lot of injuries, especially on the Seattle Seahawks team. They also signed longtime Panther Greg Olsen to be tight end 1 this season. I think the loss of Jimmy Graham was something that they needed to replace, and this is a nice veteran to kind of bring. I really hope that Jimmy Graham was this season that they lost in another season, because that would be really embarrassing. But I am not going to stop the video to go look that up right now. Um, but they needed kind of a veteran presence at the tight end slot. Will Disley, if I believe, is there. Yeah, Will Disley is the kind of next guy up at the tight end position. So they kind of need that veteran presence, somebody that they could step in and that they know will be able to be effective for them running some routes. Now it will take some time to see if he can stay healthy. Unfortunately, Greg Olsen has a ton of injury history. Um, but I think that if he can stay healthy, he'll be a great weapon for Russell Wilson in this offense. Moving
Just
on.
for reference, Jimmy Graham's last season with the Seahawks was 2017.
Oh no, that's really embarrassing. Who did they have last season? Who was the tight end last season? Because I remember it being somebody, a name I recognized. Was it really
Uh,
just Will Disley and I'm just having a brain fart? It's very possible. It's
I
been a
think
long
you
day.
are.
It's been a very long day. It's extremely possible. As soon as I said Jimmy Graham, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. That's why
Uh,
I called myself out immediately. Um, but you know what?
Jacob Hollister,
Yeah, Jacob Hollister is still on the roster. He's
Luke
their third.
Wilson, and Tyrone Swoops.
Huh. I'm
That's
completely tripping. I apologize, Seahawks fans.
Yeah,
Um,
no, they had a problem with tight ends last year. I actually remember those. They from fieldgoals.com, uh, tight end tailspin, as it's called. Yeah,
yeah, that's my fault, Seahawks fans. Quite frankly, I kind of got lost in the sauce of the DK Metcalf hype last season. To be completely honest with you. Um, I think as quite a lot of people did, he's kind of shocked the league last season. Um, so I apologize for that. That's what happens when you try to do stuff off of memory, I guess, after a long day. Anyways, onto the defense. Um, 26th in yards allowed per game, 27th in passing yards per game, 22nd in rushing yards per game, and 22nd in points allowed per game. The defense was not the strong suit of this football team, um, which is, I was thinking about this earlier as I was starting to put this video together. It's kind of amazing that the Seahawks have continued to remain relevant from year to year, even though the team itself has kind of gone over a massive overhaul. Since they kind of had those Super Bowl runs. I mean, God, what was that, like 8 years ago at this point?
yeah, it's been a while.
That they had the Legion of Boom with Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, and those guys in the secondary, and that defense was really the highlight of that team. That the offense was kind of almost the supporting cast of that defense, and now it's roles are completely reversed, but they've maintained a top level competitiveness in this league despite that kind of overhaul that they had to make. So that was just kind of interesting for me. But the defense is definitely something that they're going to need to look to kind of improve. I don't know. I don't know too much. I don't know too much in terms of like a kind of advanced stats or anything like that in terms of if it was just kind of a down season for them or if they underperformed or what exactly it was. Um, but they brought in Benson Mayowa to start at defensive end, as well as Bruce Irvin from the Panthers to start opposite him at defensive end. So they brought in completely new edge rushers, um, kind of looking to revamp that defense a little bit, create some more pressure on the quarterback, as well as bringing in Quinton Dunbar to start opposite Shaquille Griffin at cornerback and have kind of, I mean, that would be a very solid 1-2 punch at the quarterback position. Now, the one kind of caveat to that is Shaquille Griffin is currently in the middle of a battle of a armed robbery case.
Huh?
So depending on how that kind of finishes out, that would dictate. I mean, that would be a huge loss of the Seahawks if they're not able to have his talent out in the backfield, in the secondary. But we have to wait and see how that kind of resolves itself. I actually believe I read an article today that said that he is switching lawyers, which is not necessarily a great sign, but I guess we will see how it all kind of works itself out. But I think that that's enough about their kind of off-season moves in the 2019 Seahawks. Again, I apologize for that. I don't know what the hell I was thinking with Jimmy Graham. It's been a long day. I apologize. Anyways, they made 8 selections this year, starting with Jordan Brooks, outside linebacker, out of Texas Tech. I think that you're not really surprised to see them go defense early here. I think that, as I was just talking about, that was something that we kind of expected them to do. There's something that they needed to do. And Jordan Brooks fit the bill. He's versatile. He can line up kind of all over the defensive formation. He's rangy with good closing speed, and he's got the burst to be able to shoot gaps and make tackles in the backfield. He's a powerful tackler with the length and body control to make open field tackles and make plays in space. And he also reads the quarterback well, and he uses his range effectively, especially in underneath coverage. He's slated to start at linebacker to start the season. Um, this is the guy. This is a guy that is going to be a kind of a huge filler for this defense. This is a guy that kind of can I'm not gonna say do it all, but he can definitely make himself known kind of all over the defensive formation. He's going to be effective in multiple facets for that defense, and this was a good pickup for them in my opinion in the first round of the draft. Next up, they went defense again with Darrell Taylor, defensive end out of Tennessee. Um, he's got average size and slightly below average length, but he's quick and he shows flashes of effective inside moves. He keeps his hips down and his hands inside him against the run. Now, he does need to work a little bit on getting off blocks, um, but overall, I would expect to see him get some reps this season, and I think that he can definitely make an impact. He's currently listed as a backup defensive end. I did mention that they brought in those two guys that will be starting for them at defensive end, but I don't see why he won't be able to make an impact for this team in the immediate future. I think that he's got I mean, obviously he's got his speed and just the overall talent um, to be able to make that impact this season. And this defense, I think, is going to be looking to try to rebuild and really create a really solid just overall team. The offense is there. It's ready to compete now. It's just a matter of getting that defense to that next level so that they can compete with some of the better teams in the league. Next up, I mentioned that they were overhauling their offensive line, and they continued that with Damian Lewis in the third round, offensive guard out of LSU. He is a bit on the shorter side with below average length, but he's got good upper body strength, and he anchors well in pass protection. He's an effective run blocker with flashes of above average power. Um, and ESPN was quoted as saying he just plays with an edge. And which is, something that you're going to be looking for. You're going to be looking for that kind of tough, like hard-nosed guy to lead the way for those running backs, so that you can continue to run the ball down people's throats and be able to keep Russell Wilson upright, because at the end of the day, Russell Wilson is such a large part of that offense. You can't afford to have him go down with injury. You need to keep him healthy. So getting guys like this that are going to be able to kind of anchor well, keep the defense in front of them, is going to be very important for this football team. So slated to start at right guard. That's their third of 5 offensive line positions that will be new to start the season. Next up, we were just talking about the tight end woes. Colby Parkinson, tight end out of Stanford. He's a big target with a large catching radius. He can make tough catches over the middle, as well as having the ability to win 50-50 balls, especially when lined up out wide. He's fast enough to make plays down the seam, and he fights hard as a blocker. And when you're 6'7", 250, you definitely have the frame to continue to improve in that department. Now, this season he is technically only listed as a tight end 4. But I would say they're kind of looking for that long-term option. I mentioned the fact that they had Jimmy Graham earlier. I think this is where I meant to mention it, is that they haven't really had that guy that they can turn to since Jimmy Graham left. As Matt reminded us, it was 2017 that he left, and not last season.
Yeah, they've had like a kind of carousel of different tight ends starting and going down and up and down the depth chart. So, yeah. I mean, it's a big area of concern for him.
Yes, I think this is where I meant to bring Jimmy Graham up and not earlier, so... Again, I'm going to apologize for that. That's still really embarrassing to me. But anyways, I think that this is a guy that they're kind of going to look to develop and see if he can be that long-term option for them. Obviously, they're not 100% sure, hence him being kind of listed further down the depth charts this season. But I think that he's kind of got the talent to be that guy. He can block well. He's got the frame to be able to block well, even though he's not necessarily fantastic at it right now. He fights hard. And I think given some time, he can develop into being a very solid blocker. And he's just got the overall size and ability to make plays catching the football, which is kind of what you're looking for out of a tight end, is to be able to do those two things. So I think given some time, he could step up and be that guy. I don't think Will Dissly is the long-term answer for them at tight end. I think that they're kind of looking for him to be a kind of a tight end 2 option maybe. And I think that Colby Parkinson could fit the bill given some time and the ability to continue to develop.
I mean, I think like you said, I think he's got the the tools that you're looking for at a tight end. It's about developing them into smarter game sense, smarter just overall. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just takes time to get him up from the college level up to NFL speed. So it'll be interesting to see how he's able to develop and if he can become that option for them. But it's definitely something that they're going to be looking for. Next up, we've got uh, DJ Dallas, out of running back out of Miami. He runs hard and he has above average balance, and he does show the ability to make the first defender miss. He plays faster than his timed 40 speed, but he also moved from receiver to running back halfway through the 2017 season. So we may not have necessarily seen. He could still continue to develop and kind of grow into that running back role more as time goes on. I don't necessarily think that we've seen kind of everything that he has to offer. Um, he flashes good ball skills, but he's not a great pass blocker. So there's some concerns about his ability to kind of flex in that offensive role. He's going to be more of a if you're not turning around and handing the ball off to him, or having him run a route, you can't really. He's honestly been, from what I was looking at, there's some times that he almost looks like a liability back there, trying to be a blocker. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they work that in. He's an effective special teams player, as a punt returner. He even ran one back for a touchdown in 2018. Um, for right now, he's unlikely to be a huge contributor this year. He's not on the depth chart, but I would say the history of running back injuries, on this team and just kind of overall around the league, it's good to have that depth, and I still think he could find a home on special teams, but I think that it's definitely possible that they could have maybe gotten someone at a position that needed depth help, or something else, maybe looked another way. Um, so it'll be kind of interesting to see where he slots in long term. I think that kind of out of a fourth round pick, I would kind of like to have seen them get somebody who's more likely to kind of play a role this season in some facet. Um, but only time will tell. Uh, Next up, we've got Alton Robinson, defensive end out of Syracuse. Um, he's got a above average initial quickness. He actually ran the third fastest 40 of all defensive linemen at the combine. He doesn't necessarily counter well if he doesn't win on his first move, but he's disruptive in run defense, and he can, although inconsistently, slip blocks at times, and close well from the backside. There are some instances of him giving ground, which is a little bit of a concern. But right now, out of a fifth round pick, he's going to be slotted as a fourth string defensive end. I would say he has the tools to develop over time, but I feel like maybe they could have gone, I would have liked to have seen them gone for some safety depth here. They had already picked up outside linebacker as well as a defensive end earlier in the draft, as well as the other moves that they made in the offseason at the defensive end position. So they've already been showing a lot of love to their defensive front, and I feel like the safety is the one kind of spot in the secondary that kind of needs a little bit more depth for them, and so I would have liked them to have looked somewhere during this draft to kind of beef that up. But unfortunately, spoiler alert for their next two picks, they did not look at the safety position at all. So I definitely think that he's got potential, and over time he could develop into being a very effective pass rusher, or just overall defensive end. But I think that in terms of immediate impact, I would have liked to have seen them kind of look towards safety position somewhere in here, whether it was in the fourth pick here, instead of looking at looking running back, or right here. Next up, we've got Freddy Swain, wide receiver out of Florida. He's got great top end speed, and he shows upside as a slot receiver. He does need to work on his route running, but he did return an 85-yard punt or return a punt 85 yards, excuse me, for a touchdown in 2018. And he has a legitimate chance to push for the punt returning job as a rookie. He is currently listed as a wide receiver 6. I would say his real value is more likely to come in his overall position depth, and more importantly, his ability to contribute on special teams. And I do want to just go back here. It makes the DJ Dallas pick even more questionable in my opinion, because the one thing that I did say about Dallas was that he could potentially be a special teams impact player for them, but it seems like they two rounds later were able to find a guy that is going to be more likely to be able to be an effective punt returner for them in Freddy Swain, and is more likely to make that immediate impact in special teams for them. So I'm curious to see what they do with DJ Dallas. I don't know if it was somebody that they're kind of drafting and kind of looking to develop and seeing what he can offer them at the running back position, or what exactly the plan is. Um, but I do think in terms of immediate value, um, I would honestly argue that in the next season, Freddy Swain has more of a chance to make an immediate impact than DJ Dallas does, unless, of course, there are injuries that find DJ Dallas on the playing field as a running back. Anyways, moving into the last pick here, we've got Steven Sullivan, tight end out of LSU. He's got great size, length, and speed. And he had the second fastest 40-yard dash time of all tight ends at the combine. His production just never quite seemed to match his talent at LSU. He's not a great blocker, and he's unlikely to develop into one at the NFL level. Um, so, despite all the kind of intangible things that he has, as well as just overall talent, it never really seemed to blossom for him. Um, and they're going to look to see if they can kind of change that for him, allow him to blossom a little bit and develop into to the player that he always like could look like he could be. Um, However, he's not on the depth chart this season, and so I'm kind of curious to see where he'll find a home. If it's going to be kind of a practice squad guy, and he'll kind of get bounced around from team to team. We see that quite a lot. Um, But with that kind of speed and size, I think that there's a chance he could find a home on a coverage team somewhere. I look at special teams quite a lot, if you haven't realized by now, just because I think it's kind of the forgotten piece of NFL teams. A lot of people they focus so much on the offense and the defense because they're the ones that are on the field. I mean, 90% of the 90% of the time. Uh, but I always say this about special teams: you forget about them when they're good and they're doing their job, but when you have a bad special teams unit, you will hate it. So I will never hate on a guy who's able to produce on special teams. So I'm interested to see if he can find a home there. Um, but that is it. That is all their picks for the 2020 draft. As I mentioned earlier, I did not see them make a selection really in the secondary on that defense at all, which I think is a little questionable to me. I would have liked to have seen them make a pick either at corner or at a safety position and kind of look for some talent there. Um, I'm not super concerned about the cornerback, especially because they did go out and bring in Quentin Dunbar, assuming obviously he doesn't wind up in jail. Um, but the safety position, I think, was something that I would have liked to have seen them find some depth at. Even if it wasn't necessarily anybody who was ready to start this season, just giving themselves some depth and some options, given injuries or even if guys are just tired and they need breaks, allowing themselves to have some guys on that depth chart to give themselves some options. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Um, but I think that we've kind of hit everything that we needed to hit on. So I think it's time to kind of get into the grade here for this. For this 2020 NFL draft, and I'm thinking about it, and I think I'm going to slot them in here at a B. I think you'll find that a lot of the teams kind of end up as a B, because obviously all these guys that are coming out of the draft, they all have potential, and there's always hope that these guys will continue to develop and reach their full potential. Um, but I don't necessarily think that they really did anything super special here. Again, I did mention that I kind of wish that they had selected somebody in that secondary, given themselves some more options, especially given that they needed some love on the defense as a whole. But I mean, especially in passing defense. Again, 27th in passing yards allowed per game. So I would have liked to have seen them step up and make a selection there, but they did not. But I don't think that there's necessarily any pick that I look at and I say, what were you thinking? The only one that I was kind of really strongly questioning was the DJ Dallas pick, but he definitely does have talent, and I definitely feel like he will find a home. I just, and even he could even potentially find a home on this team next season, but I just don't think that this upcoming season is that time for him. So in terms of immediate impact, that's what I was questioning. If they were looking to compete this season, I don't necessarily know that he is going to be that kind of be able to be kind of a piece for them in that team, barring injuries. But overall, I think that the draft was solid, but nothing super special. Um, do you have anything to add, Matt?
Not really. I think that not really. They seem to have a pretty solid idea of where they were going, and made overall decent picks, but some, as you said, confusing ones. So yeah, yeah. Uh, that sounds okay.
Hello. Did my microphone not unmute itself?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that's pretty upsetting. Anyways, I was gonna say, I really did like the Jordan Brooks pick, which I know, like, wow, like, he really likes the first round selection. Um, I don't normally kind of go back and double down on it, but I do want to just mention, I think that Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner are going to. I think they will work well together, and I think that the two of them will play off each other's strengths well. So I think that they will they've given themselves two very solid linebackers, as well, along with KJ Wright, who's not who's no slouch either. So they've kind of given themselves a good linebacking core to kind of work with and build around. So I really like what they did with the linebacking core, and I really think that he could be a really big piece for this defense. So that's definitely like a guy to look out for. I know obviously not reinventing the wheel here, picking the first round pick to keep an eye on, but I did want to say that with his versatility, I definitely would keep an eye on him if I was a Seahawks fan. But I think that that will be it for us for today. Make sure to come back tomorrow to look at or to watch or however you want to phrase that. Matt's San Francisco Giants video. You excited for the San Francisco Giants?
Nope.
Oh, I'm brutally honest. I respect it.
I mean, they lost their best player in the off season. They've been on a decline. They have a front office that's not entirely sure what it wants to do. I mean, they're kind of leaning towards the rebuild that they absolutely need, but it's just it ain't pretty yet.
That's fair. So make sure to come back tomorrow to check that out. Or if you're interested, go make sure to check out his Seattle Mariners preseason grades that came out yesterday. Um,
I will say Giants are definitely better than the Mariners.
okay, interesting.
I don't
Um,
think it's that interesting.
I mean, fair. I mean, if that is your opinion and that's what you believe, I'll stand by that. I respect that. Anyways, um, again, the link to this highlight video will be in the description down below, so be sure to check that out. Also in the description down below is a link to our Discord as well as our Instagram and Twitter. We're not super active on our Instagram and Twitter, but make sure to come over and check out our Discord. We are very active in that, and if you guys are interested to talk any kind of sport, really, esport, doesn't really matter. We're down to just kind of talk to you guys and just kind of hang out and chat. So make sure to check that out. Um, but I think that that is everything that we wanted to cover today. Um, so with all that being said, like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time. Peace.